Nerd Soul.
Lay ill kid at OneYoungsta holding it down, bringing that street geek and nerd soul. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. Let's go because it's Star Wars time. It's Star Wars time once again. It's Star Wars. And if if you happen for some reason to not be able to get to the end of this podcast, is because a violent thunderstorm took us out, and don't worry about it. But I am not by myself. Nah. I'm joined by a writer, director extraordinaire. I give to you, Jay Sherer. What's up?
Oh, you know what's up? It's more Star Wars. Some more Star Wars is up, and we're gonna get into it because it's as you said before we started recording, it is the penultimate episode.
Yes,
of the
that's
Acolytes.
right. The penultimate episode. Man, look, there's only one more left. We've gone through all this. We've made it all the way. We're here. We just got one more episode to go. We've been walking through 1 through 7. We have thoughts, but of course. It's not just myself. It's not just Jay. Solar Grey is here as well. I don't know if he's on the mic yet, but when he gets in, he will introduce himself and all that good stuff. Are you there?
I am the cinematic sorcerer coming at you from the Wizard's Tower.
All right. See this one? Look, this now we have completely formed as Voltron should. And
does that make me the feet and ankles?
I want to see where I want to start with this. All right. I'll throw this statement. Well, you know what? Instead of throwing out a statement, I'll go to Solar Grey first. What are your initial thoughts when you finished this episode? How did you feel about it?
No, I pray for Jackie's strength. All right. So my first watch through of this was, oh, okay, another flashback. And then I'm like, oh, it's the same flashback. Good job on using the footage from a different point of view. Okay, so we're going to go Rashomon on this. Okay, all right, that's fine. No Rashomon, no Star Wars. And I gotta say, my initial thought was, you know what? Jedi ain't so bad. Yeah, Jedi, not so bad. Some of y'all might know what I'm about to say, but King Tommen, kind of bad. Glad he was meditating. But yeah, the Jedi, yeah, not terrible. Not terrible. Not great. But
okay.
Not terrible.
All right. So, Jay, how are you? Initial thoughts? How are you feeling about this episode?
You know what? I hate to bring everyone's high down, but this was probably my least favorite episode of the series. You said it best, Michael, when you said they need to have a reveal, and the reveal needs to be something real good. And I felt like this was an episode that it's like when someone's holding back and like they're trying to make something like really intense, and they slow down their speech, and you wait for it, and then they finish their story, and it's like, oh, that was like not worth the suspense. Like I already knew that was going to happen. I could have predicted this was going to happen. So it felt to me like this episode was just super predictable and very much. I kind of. This is what's interesting about this show. I feel like I actually like what they're trying to do with it. I like what they're trying to play with in terms of what the Jedi are good at and bad at. I like this idea that there's other, what do they call them, a force cult or something like that. I like the idea that exists in the world. I think those things are really cool ideas. But then in the execution, it feels like it's trying to. It feels like the person at the table who is acting like the smartest person at the table, but it's like, but no, you're not the smartest person at the table, so stop acting like that. Just be yourself. And it feels like it's trying to be something that it can't attain, and that bums me out a lot. So, not my favorite episode.
Okay. All right. So my initial thoughts is, first thing, this is a better episode 3 than episode 3 was. Also, we rewrote this better than they wrote this. They could have made this episode 3. They could have broken up episode 3 into memories that were all from the girl's perspective, and we could have gotten to the action sooner in episode 4 or 5. Then also, oh god, and this is a big also. Someone in the writer's room was scared, very scared, to just let the Jedi be bad. Like, you did all this lead up to be like, oh, these Jedi did something bad. They did something super bad. And then it's like, at the very end, it seems like someone came in the writer's room at the end like, whoa, the Jedi can't be bad. And I agree with that. But don't write a lead up like this, making us think the Jedi are bad all this time to give us this weak sauce excuse of like, oh no, their mind was controlled, so then they had to fight back. It's like, no, they broke in someone's house and essentially just about kidnapped their children. What are you talking about? It's not even like, oh my god, I wrote a better version when I said they could have just been some rogue Jedi, which they kind of are in this, but they kind of weak sauced it. But they're rogue Jedi. They're like, we're going to take these kids. We don't care what they say. And when they try to push back, they killed them, and they kept that from Coruscant. And then we find out that these Jedi actually have been dabbling in emotions and stuff and have been leaning into the dark side more than even they know. Boom, there you go. You got May. May's mad because they wiped Osha's mind, but they didn't get a chance to wipe May's mind. So May remembers everything. Osha remembers nothing. There you go. I said this like 5 episodes ago. But no, we got to do this stupid stuff where, oh man, I don't know why I'm so upset with this.
I do.
What? Why am I so upset with this, Sola?
When we did the review for Doom,
Okay.
You were talking about Doom Part 1. You were there. You were all there. Until it played the black person sacrifices themselves so the white folks can get away.
Oh yeah.
And in this episode, we got the Jedi doing stupid stuff. And how can I put this? I wasn't mad at Carrie Ann Moss.
No, because
I wasn't mad at Saul.
She was actually the one that was like, hey y'all, let's not get wild. Let's, let's follow the rules. Let's go in and we got the checklist. She was actually, the trip is the one that was kind of chilling is the one that died first.
Yeah. And it was the kid. It was the Padawan that messed up everything for everybody. Because as soon as that phone call hung up, she was like, council said no, we need to go. And so I was like, but the kid wants to come with us. Yeah, that's great, but home office said no, so we gotta go. And then they found out about the cloning, and the kid was like, oh no, they broke the law. I gotta go. I got a yellow lightsaber, which is this show's way of saying I gotta do something real dumb and possibly get myself or many people killed. And sure enough, you got angry mom, you got angry kid, and of course you've got black mama going, hold up. Can we relax for just a minute? Oh, you drew your weapon. Hang on, let me possess somebody. And then you've got my namesake looking at a dog going, hey, you got a pretty mouth. Because boy, did he screw the pooch on that one.
Right.
Giving us the most understandable villain motivation that we have seen in Star Wars ever.
But everything around this was fumbled in such a fumbly way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But those were the two big points. You know, the two big points. You got your Grace the Padawan losing his mind for a minute and going, no, they're clones. We gotta go. We gotta go get them clones. You know, and
Because he's like, I'll do anything to get back home. I'm like, bruh, is it that bad on this planet? Like, y'all, but if y'all would have spent some time showing us how much it sucked for him or something like that, maybe. But oh my, like,
I'm with you on that 100%, brother.
I'm watching the show. I'm like, we've rewritten this better than this. Maybe that's why I'm so upset, because you, me, Jay, we've rewritten this show maybe 2 or 3 times better than this. And I was hoping that they would really go for the gusto and give us something worth waiting for. But you've been teasing us for 7 episodes to give us this weak sauce kind of, oh, well, I had to protect myself, so we had to kill him kind of thing. It's like, no, you put them in a horrible situation and worked.
Hey, I swear that
hard.
orphanage was gonna kill me.
Yeah,
It was near them.
Yeah, and after it didn't tell us that you broke into their house, because the way way episode 3 went, it seemed like they were kind of in this open area village and they just happened upon it. They like walked into the village. You broke into their home and was like, "Give me your kids." Really though? Like. And then, like, the only thing Indara did do wrong, which I kind of understand, which is kind of going from the example of The Wire, when it was like, yo, if it's a lie, we fight on that lie. Because, like, look, people are shooting in the streets now. We can't go back and be like, hold up everybody, you know, actually, we were wrong. No, it's like, yo, look, we got to live on this now. So I kind of see where Indara comes from, but like, y'all screwed this up. Indara was actually just chilling. Oh man.
Yeah.
This show makes the Jedi look bad, but then tries to on the back end be like, well, they're not that bad. It's like, no, just let them be bad. Then we can say, oh, this group of Jedi had been dabbling with the dark side. They never told us, we never knew, and that makes this even worse because this is a larger conspiracy on Jedi being too far from the source or something like that. I don't know, but it ends up being weak for me.
Yeah.
Especially when you broke in their house. And if someone breaks in my house, talk about give me your kids. Look, it's not going to be a good look. Like, I'm going to be ready to fight too. But go ahead, Jay. I don't know.
Well, here's I think, again, the ideas that they're playing with are not bad ideas. Conceptually speaking, the ideas to me are interesting. So one of the things that I'm a little bit frustrated with is that it's very difficult for me to know what parts of what group's actions the show is suggesting are bad, because we know that the Jedi are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. That's very obvious, right? But we also get the impression that the witches are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, because they're trying to cover up the fact that they even have a Vergence and that they've used the Force to create 2 humans with 1 conscious, which I want to talk about because that's weird.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
It's not a story a Jedi would tell. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Here's the problem I have with it, though. I care about the characters if I know what the characters are dealing with and I know what their backgrounds are, and the setup to get to the payoff makes sense because I've been with these characters for a long period of time. But this show has too many characters that it wants us to care about, and we don't spend enough time with them. The only characters that we've really spent enough time with are Soul, Osha, and maybe on the off chance May is in there as well. Every other character in this show hasn't had enough time on screen for us to like. Did any of us really, when we were talking on episode 5, did any of us really say like, oh man, I was heartbroken to see Yord go down, right? Now contrast this again with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, which spend a lot of time with the characters. We understand who the characters are. We understand why they do what they do. We understand what their weaknesses are. We understand what their strengths are. We're even willing, because those characters are so human, we're even willing to put up with a character who does some nefarious things, even though we're like, still kind of root for them, even though they're a complete dirtbag. And that's because they've humanized those characters for us so that we go, oh man, I know people like that.
And in all fairness, we've all thought about pushing a kid out of a window.
Yeah, exactly. It's at least crossed our mind. No, but I think this show, unfortunately, what it's doing is it's rushing through the character arcs so fast that, yeah, like you said, Michael, with the Padawan, we're like, bro, just relax, meditate a little bit. Yeah. You've only been there for 2 weeks. It's not like it's the end of the world. You look like you're eating pretty good food. Like, you're on an important mission too, by the way.
You got the Wookie rotisserizing a chicken. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the Wookiee's another great example. All we know about these characters is something horrific happened, and then the one kid goes to meditate for the rest of his life in his little force ball. And then the Wookiee, who we don't really know anything about at all before this, except that Wookiee lives by himself in the middle of a jungle, and we have no idea why. Indara, we don't really know why she's up to what she's up to. So they're saving all of this as if it's a big plot device to then go like, we're going to let you know who these characters are, and we're going to let you know the dastardly stuff they were up to. But it doesn't play out that way because we don't know these characters well enough to be able to say like, oh, Indara's actions killed Yord, and I loved Yord, but I also like Indara. Now I feel conflicted. Same thing with the witches. We don't know enough about what the witches were. No, we got a few scenes with the witches where, you know, the witch with the I can't remember her name, the witch with the horns, where she's like, I'm not letting anybody take my daughter. And that was like, that gave me the, oh yeah, I totally can understand why you would say that. I would feel the exact same way. But if we had more background with them, if we had more time with them to see how they interact, how they go through life, I think it would be a lot better. And I think that it's ultimately, at the end of the day, it is too many characters with not enough time per episode and number of episodes and number of seasons for us to really dig into this whole twist and turning story the way that I think we need to. Andor pulled it off, but Andor had longer episodes and Andor had a longer season. It was 10 episodes. I believe it was 10 episodes. Don't quote me on that. And Game of Thrones, same way. They spend a lot of time. Game of Thrones will have an hour and 20-minute episode. So they're not scared to put that stuff in. They're not cutting stuff on the cutting room floor. And so this show just doesn't, this is why it doesn't work for me.
So it sounds to me like you're saying this show could use the power of many more minutes.
The
power
of many more minutes. I'm all about that.
Right. Oh man. Okay. So I want to talk about the Vergence, because they spend a lot of time. The whole reason they're there is because they believe that there's a Vergence on this planet. Like the whole idea, like, hey, this planet was dead. You know, I don't know however many years ago. I can't remember the exact statement, but we think that there's a Vergence here. We're here to look for it. You know, because they're like looking at the flora and stuff. So I'm like, okay, so even at the start of this, you're like, so how did they get to killing people? Which is why I think this would have been better as an episode 3, but whatever. I'm like, this is a better episode 3 than episode 3 was, but I still don't like this one. But
tell us how you really feel.
The Vergence thing is kind of cool, but I need to know why the Padawan is so hopped up about it. Like, I mean, we know, because we know, okay, a Vergence of the Force, they used it to make Anakin. Apparently they used it to make the girls. So, okay, that's cool and all, but why are they so interested in seeing it? Because remember, Anakin doesn't exist. Not at this point. This is 100 or so years before, the whole Clone Wars and all that stuff. So why do they care about about a Vergence at all? Is it important? Should they have it? They just said that it needs to be protected or whatever like that. But they don't say, like, is it dangerous? Is it dangerous in the wrong hands? We don't really get any of that.
Well, you see, they have heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise, not a story a Jedi would tell. And they're probably upset or they're probably trying to contain that power so that it doesn't happen again.
Okay. But imagine I'm not someone who has read, well, I guess I can't say read, listened to audiobooks, read comic books, watched the movies. Say I'm a brand new Star Wars fan, and my first movie was
Say it.
You know what? My first movie was Rogue One. You know what? My first movie was The Force Awakens. All right. Let's say that my first movie was The Force Awakens, and I'm kind of new. I haven't gone back and watched anything else. Why is a Vergence important? Especially if I'm someone who likes live action. I don't read books. I don't read comics. I don't watch animated series. I know nothing but, like, oh, cool. I kind of like it. They're spaceships. They got cool fights. All right. You're not giving us anything. Even in a conversation, you can make dialogue into an exposition in a way where it doesn't seem exposic because she's teaching her Padawan.
Yeah, they could have given us a Pope in the pool. I totally get that. Like, I want to make it clear, I'm not here to defend this show. I'm really not. I am coming from a place of I had no expectations.
Oh yeah. I keep forgetting you had no expectations, so you were like, "Oh, this is gonna be fine."
Not that this gonna be fine, but coming at it with no expectations means that I get to come at it cleanly. I'm looking at it from the perspective of it is a thing outside of anything else. Like, that's kind of my favorite part of dealing with prequels, is they can happen in a vacuum as long as there's not too much fan service.
Yeah.
And so far, this show knocks that out the park because there is no fan service.
Nah, none at all.
They're kind of looking at the fans going, what? This is my show. I do what I want. Now, does that mean I agree with what they're doing? I'm not exactly agreeing with what they want. I'm really, and I know we're going to break down scenes and stuff because that's what we do on this show, but I'm skipping to something that some people could take as a final thought, which is a couple of weeks ago, Jay said pick a tone.
Yeah.
And I'm saying pick a story. Seriously. Like, for those of you guys that don't know the difference, a tone, a genre, is it dark? Is it a mystery? Is it an adventure? Is it, and I'm going, just tell me a story, not 100 pieces of 6 different stories. Just give me one solid one. Because last week we looked into the Sith. This episode was not framed as a story or a conversation, and I think that was a failure on its part, given the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of going, you promised me a story in the last episode, and what you're giving me is a partial flashback.
Yeah.
Because, like, this episode just ended.
Yeah, you're giving us the other perspective of episode 3.
And I appreciate that. And I know this is a cardinal sin in modern screenwriting, and I don't care. But this episode was built for voiceover. Because the way we ended the last episode, we're supposed to take it as a given that this is Saul telling all of this to May.
You know what? That may have changed my perspective on this. But then the scenes, you know what? Let's start breaking down scenes. All right, so with the whole Saul talking to May,
Who's strapped to a bed, by the way.
who's strapped to a bed, there's a scene where he has both of the girls. He's trying to stop the bridge from falling, right?
He made
And
a choice.
he made a choice, which is the name of this episode. He made soul in the choice,
He
or I
said the
guess
thing.
I mean, I guess maybe the choice to even go out there from the Padawan, but whatever. He made the choice. My question was, in my mind, we've seen Jedi catch people with the Force tons of times. Full-grown
I thought
people.
about that. I thought
Full-grown
about
people.
that in episode
Now,
3.
I know that size matters not from Yoda, but if people are holding up full-grown people that are like, say, I don't know, 170 or so, maybe 180, maybe even 200 grown man, you can't catch I don't know, a 70-pound child, two of them, and just bring them in with your force grip or whatever.
You know what stopped me from asking those questions?
Or even a situation, on a look on his face where it's kind of like, I don't need May anyway. I only need Osha. Something. But then once again, you're making the Jedi bad, which they are working double time to not do, even though they told us gave us this idea that they were in episode 1. So,
Well, you know what got me to stop asking that question?
what?
The YouTube channel, how it should have ended.
Oh. Shouts out to those crazy people.
Dude,
Whoever runs that channel, shouts out to them.
well, when they did the episode on The Empire Strikes Back, and it was, join me, and we will rule the universe as father and son. No! And Luke heroically commits suicide by dropping to his death, and then Vader going, hold up, no, where are you going? Where are you going? No, we're gonna rule the galaxy as father and son. Taking him back. I'm like, why didn't he do that?
But so I thought that was an interesting scene that could have been played in the way that I was talking about a few episodes ago. And then this scene where he's talking to Anastasia, and Soul is like, we've
want
come
to see
here
her more and more things.
Yeah, like he's
#storm. Yeah.
He's like, we're here with the best of intentions. So I guess both of these scenes are sort of about Soul, but okay, since he's sort of our lead in this, Soul, does he not represent, especially in this situation, in this episode, doesn't he represent that person that believes that like they know better because they just know better? And like there's no other way that could be done. Like, we're here with the noblest.
Yes.
You broke in my house. Oh yeah, but it was noble though. It was noble breaking. It was noble breaking and entering. No problem. We told you we wanted to be left alone. Oh well, we're Jedi, so we're good. Don't worry. And her response to him is awesome, where she says something like, "Those intentions
are going to get all of you killed someday."
Yep. Because he says we come with the noblest of intentions. She's like, I know why you're here. Like, I get it. You wanted to be raised by an institution instead of a family. So he said, where did the twins come from? The other lady looks down. Then she says that those intentions are going to get all of it. And they never like checked up on that or anything. I guess he probably thought it was just a threat or something like that.
Yeah, and you can tell he didn't write that into the report.
Oh yeah. None of this went in the report. The report was May started a fire, and it burned down everybody.
But she was like, "No, I know how to grill, Granddad. Just give me that gasoline." Whoosh.
Oh man! But the sheer arrogance of the Jedi could have been used in such a way to align this little group that have been out here for however many weeks, align them in a track for people that are actually leaning into the dark side and don't know it. And then Coruscant, but no, what did we get? So because I I actually like that idea. Like Jay was talking about the ideas, and you have Soul in here with a lot of arrogance, like, oh, well, I, I'd be better for her. Why? Because why? Because I'm a Jedi. Well, what about Jedi makes you better than her mother? Because we're Jedi. There's never really, you could have really used that as a story, as a plot point in this, but they didn't really hang on that. Indara did warn him against that a few times, but they didn't really. I think they could have leaned on it harder, and maybe it would have made some other stuff work better for me. Because I mean, this dude, like, definitely was not letting go of like this whole child thing. Even though when he first saw them and saw their mom, the one with the horns, he seemed like he was scared of them when he was looking at them from afar. So, like, the soul scenes are a roller coaster for me. The consistency in the quality of writing is like all over the place for his character. I don't know how to feel about him. And he's supposed to be our lead, our good guy, or the representative of the good guys on the show. Especially since they're not making a hard decision on these guys being bad guys that think they're good, or bad guys that are using the clothing of the good guys to do bad stuff.
Okay, I got a counterpoint with that.
Okay, what's up?
Which is in regards to Osha and May. In this whole show, Saul has been the harbinger of shame and regret. So this whole show, he's like, I've spent 16 years living with how bad I messed up.
Okay.
And then we get to see how bad he messed up. And so, had there been the narration for everybody to know that this is a confession from him, then we could be like, all right, dude, feel bad about it. Because that was messed up. You broke into somebody's house and said, I'm going to take your kids because I'm better for them. Like, who are you? And if this would lead to say, it's actually funny because Padawan that started everything and messed everything up is the one of all of them that actually seems to show any contrition or any serious contrition for what he's done. You know?
Yeah. Because he sort of put himself in like permanent penance, sort of, and you see why, which is cool. I think that voiceover that you're talking about as a confession really it does change this episode for me. You know, like at the very end of the episode, we kind of like go out to Soul saying the last couple of words to May, and you know, being like, I can't explain how sorry I am. I was wrong, and this, and the third. Then it'd be like, oh, okay, cool, all right.
And then we cut to May looking super mad, just about to say something, and then cut to black. That was the end that this episode needed.
With the end credits music as if this was a movie.
Yeah.
I think that would be a drastic improvement. I think the only thing I'll say, I think it would be a drastic improvement. However, there's one thing I think I would still be missing from a character arc perspective, and that is we've only seen us even with those changes that you're talking about, which I think would work really well. We still haven't seen Soul in the before times, except in this episode. There might have been another flashback where we saw him a little bit, right? But like that was again in episode 3 probably. But like here's what was difficult for me. It was difficult for me because I like them playing with gray areas, but that's unusual for Star Wars. And that's unusual for Star Wars because Star Wars just basically goes like, we have to basically tell you who's good and who's bad because we only have so much time to like play out the rest of this plot.
Right.
In this case, I feel like what they should have done is that they should have, if they were going to elongate this story, which I think they should have, but I think we needed to see Soul beforehand because I got the impression in every other Jedi that we've seen in the past, usually their problem is not their instincts. Usually their instincts, like Qui-Gon Jinn's instincts, are like better than what the organization around them instincts are. It's almost like the collective rule book is usually the thing that's like the Empire does, and then that's where the Jedi fail, is like, this is the rule book, this is what we're supposed to do, and we don't have human sympathy. In this case, I felt like Soul was almost represented as the person who was going to like, hey, look, like, I'm tied to these people. The Force has told me I'm tied to these people, to Osha specifically, and this is going to be something that's really good for us to do. And then they kind of like throw him under the bus a little bit. Now, like I said, from a gray area perspective, that's actually pretty fantastic, and I would watch that show all the time. But what I don't know is I'm unable to characterize the Soul from before times. Was he too overconfident? What was his fatal flaw? Was he too reliant upon the Force, or did he kind of manipulate people with the Force? Right?
Or has this group been out around, in the Outer Rim or wherever so long, going and maybe testing people for the Force and kids and stuff? Maybe they've been out so long they believe that in all of these little like kind of hit towns or whatever, we know better because we're from the city.
Yes,
we're city folk. We're better. And shouts out to my grandma, city folk. We're city folk. We're better. We're better because we're Jedi. We have a temple and everything. We have an organization. We know what to do with the Force, and you don't. We know better than you, and that arrogance creeps in to everything they walk into. Then cool, but we don't know that.
Right, exactly. If we had those bits of information, then the reveals would be even more devastating, because we could actually see Soul doing this multiple times, and we're like, dude, I'm a little uncomfortable with that. But maybe it was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see why you would do that. And so we don't really paint him as a villain in the villain category too severely until he goes too far. Then we go, oh, this guy, dude, he messed up. Whereas this time around, it's kind of like, it's almost kind of like they want us to like all the characters until they don't, and then it's like, bam, now here's the problem with these characters. And you're like, yeah, but how does this affect them? What's their emotions around this? Obviously, I see what impact it has on them afterwards, but what was the before time like? That's what I feel like I'm missing a little bit more.
And even Indara was calling him, because then we could also see Indara calling him on his stuff a few other times, because he was like, she wants to be, she's like, you coached her. Yeah, but I'm like, this whole time you're speaking to a minor without their guardians present. What do you mean the whole situation is a coach? Like, come on, Indara. Like, let's be real.
Well, the thing, Indara, Indara was that bridge to the past, but it was so fast, it's very blink and you'll miss it. Because she was like, yeah, I'm the way I am with my Padawan because I want him to find answers. I don't just give it to him. Well, I don't agree. And that's why you don't have one. I mean, Indara is very much, you can tell she is the senior Jedi.
Yeah.
She's the one that had experience.
You can see how she handled the situation with the Wookie, which we'll get into later, but it did not take her long to handle that.
It was good to see Trinity again. Yes. But yeah, so when it came down to it, what I saw was something that actually made me feel bad for Indara.
Okay.
From a supervisor's point of view, it's all right. I've got this mission, going to be away from home for a while, and this is my crew. I mean, I'm good with the Wookie.
They said 7 weeks, so they've been there basically 2 months. So I can see from a Padawan's position, it can be kind of boring out there. But I mean, the way he's acting, like he is.
Yeah, I want to go home.
He's going
I want to go home. I'm like,
but once again, we didn't
see Jedi since you were like 5.
Yeah, true. Like it doesn't reconcile. But
unless
go ahead.
The Force can't stop puberty.
Yeah, the other piece of that too. That's interesting is like they don't even give us more information about what significance the Vergence has. Like they say that they need to find it, and Indara is like, no, we can't go home. We need to see if this thing exists. Also, the witches are hiding it, right? Like this is what's I think a little bit confusing, and I actually this is why I'm so conflicted with the show. I really do love the concepts. So like when they say that the witches are going to do like see in my mind, what's really fascinating about when you guys talk about this is in my mind the Jedi are not as wrong for intervening in my mind as they are in your mind. And I know that it goes wrong, and they do a lot of wrong things along the way. From my perspective,
the Jedi are evil. No, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, see, that's the thing, is that I'm thinking of it from a context of I'm assuming that every time Star Wars has told me that you use the dark side of the Force, that you are doing very nefarious things, and you're trying to control other people, you're trying to demean other people, you're trying to come down on other people. And so from that perspective, if the Jedi see these witches using the dark side of the Force, what are they supposed to assume? Are they supposed to assume like, oh yeah, like they're probably treating these girls real good and it's no problem at all, and like no problem, but they created these girls out of nothing, and what exactly are they doing with them? So what's interesting about this is it's a fascinating and valuable concept to play with about how misconceived notions get you into situations that suddenly you do things that you wish you had never done before. That is fantastic.
But the problem is, go on and lay it out.
Yeah, the problem is we don't get enough time with any of these people to know if they're really truly bad, if they're really truly good, if there's some mix of the two. And so that's what I'm struggling to come to terms with. I'm struggling to come to terms with like, what are you trying to say and what are you trying to make a point with? Because it feels like to me what you're also kind of trying to say is the witches and the Jedi are the same and there's no difference between them. And like Chimera is for sure bad. Like we just know that Chimera is for sure bad. But even then, like we do have a little bit of sympathy for him because he has the lash marks on his back.
That definitely came from Vernestra.
That definitely came from Vernestra. So I'm like, I get what you're doing and I love neo-noir type stuff. But the problem is I'm having a hard time making sense of what you're actually trying to tell me. And so that's what I'm struggling with when it comes down to it. And I think Solar nailed it when he said, pick the story, because there's so many stories that they're trying. We literally have a dark side Sith user with lashes on his back running around that doesn't even appear in the penultimate episode of this show.
That definitely come from a Jedi that look like they are either punitive or torture marks.
Yes.
Both of which we do not attribute to Jedi.
Exactly.
So how did they, but we just leave that story alone. Just like when we were watching Obi-Wan. All right. So remember we were watching Obi-Wan and you had the girl that survived Order 66. Okay, Reva, she survives Order 66, knows that Vader is Anakin, and vows revenge. That's a story on its own, but it gets like tucked into the Obi-Wan story.
That's a better story than the Obi-Wan story was.
Like imagine someone who survived that and knows that Anakin is Vader and is like going to the dark side to be able to kill him. Whether she wins or not, or he wins or not, that's still an awesome story.
Yep.
Yeah. Like the amount of hate that you would have to go from being like this youthful, vibrant child that's in the Jedi Order, learning how to, bring balance and be one with nature and all that stuff, to being like, we were attacked, I barely survived, and now I know who did it, and I'm going to make sure he pays. And I don't care how dark my soul has to get to. That's an awesome story. But not when it's tucked into the Obi-Wan story, which I didn't like either. But,
Hey, man. Hey. We all need stories. where people put on a trench coat and stand on each other's shoulders. Okay.
That's actually true.
Oh boy, but yeah, this is. I'll say that I think the Acolyte is falling into the prequels category with me, where there's a lot of cool stuff in here that could be done in here.
Yes,
but I don't like it.
Yeah,
like you don't like what they're doing.
Yeah, because like the prequels, I think the prequels are a bunch of awesome moments wrapped in bad movies.
Fair. So this
now,
episode,
the animated series does help fix it up a little bit, but it's still like I watch those movies, I'm like, oh, this is cool, and that's cool, and that's cool. But then I'm like, I don't like this movie though.
So this episode gave us a really big hint, a huge Easter egg, a clue. Now help me out here because I'm terrible with names. You said given by Venestra. Who's Venestra?
She's the green
lady.
The green
okay.
Jedi.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, who is she? What's her story? I don't know. But anyway.
And it seemed like we were gonna get some of that in this episode, but whatever.
But yeah. So with that, I don't think that those scars came from Venestra, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
We know that Das Witches made up the girls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you notice, the girls are reflections of their mother, of their mothers.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Osha, who is adventurous and gentle and all that other jazz. Okay. Loves playing with the butterflies. Loves doing all that.
And everything nice.
And we've got #Storm as her mother, who is prudent and loving and all that stuff. However, we've hardly spent any time talking about Other Mom. Okay. Other Mom, who is emotional, angry, violent, quick to act. You should at this point know where I'm going with this, right?
Okay.
Also not in the big meditation circle. So you've got the titular Acolyte in this movie, or in this show, having been shown in this episode to specifically have a closer relationship with one mother than the other.
All right, I see. Okay.
Specifically, what are you gonna do? You gotta do something about it. Get mad. The Jedi aren't gonna give you warning. Death does not wait for you to catch your breath. Oh, sorry, wrong. Sorry, I got Liam in my head. And that question of where was the Sith trained after he left his dance troupe in Jacksonville? And then we see this weapon-wielding Force user who's telling their South Park-aged daughter to get mad and use the Force to fight. Interesting.
Maybe they still have another revelation for the last episode, but they've broken me down. but all right, so this I'll say this, because I don't want to be mad the whole time. Okay, because I know we're going long, so because we're getting up there. So
#Wookie fight.
The Wookie fight was cool.
My opinion had the best shot in the episode.
Yeah, then also just we forget, even though the Wookiee's feet just look like shoes, but I'm gonna let that go. When they showed the shot of him walking through, I was like, that just looks like a shoe. That doesn't look like toes or
I got suspension of disbelief on that.
I was like, y'all should have did that shot. But anyway, thinking of a Wookiee's sheer strength without the Force, I was like, yeah, they in trouble.
My mind is fortified. I wasn't talking about you.
he was just beating them down with the lightsaber. Like he wasn't even. He was just beating them
Lightsaber
down.
was almost incidental.
Yeah, it
but-
was just like, yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
There was a
But-
couple of times where he just manhandled them, or I guess Wookie handled them, but you know what I mean.
Oh man, when he
Like, he
was
just
fighting,
tossed them around.
when he was fighting the Padawan, every time the Padawan blocks, he got knocked down. I'm like,
Yeah, like just the sheer strength. I'm like, man, you know what? They should have tried to get way more Wookiees to be Jedi, because like the
No,
sheer
force
strength
sensitive-
is crazy.
now force sensitive Wookiees would have been an entirely different outcome in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, you're right. Like any or like the what's the other race that what is it, Bossk or whatever? The reptile guys that are super strong too.
Oh yeah,
Like
Yeah, what are
like, it would have been a completely different situation. But yeah, just watching the fight, I thought it was well done. Also just his sheer strength really, it reminded me like, oh yeah, I forgot Wookiees are extra strong too.
well you know he did rip the arms off the last guy that beat him.
Yeah, this is but yeah, the Padawan was, he was struggling. And we finally see where the blade marks come from and everything. But he was struggling. Like, thank God thank God Soul was there, because he wasn't. That would have been over.
And then Saul gets certain body parts of his handed to him. And in
Yes.
comes Trinity. I was waiting for a bullet time shot when she took him down.
Oh, oh man, yeah. For her, the Wookiee fight was cool. They used the area pretty well. I liked seeing just his sheer strength over theirs. Even when he used the forces pushing them all. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, if he really wanted to, like, y'all, yeah,
And
y'all,
Wookiee plus the
y'all are
Force.
not on his level.
Let's hope that there are no Wookiee Sith.
Yeah, it's like y'all are not on his level. But then to see what Indara does, it's just like, wow, the force is strong with her.
Hmm.
Like, I guess she just essentially shut their minds down and killed them all at the same time. Or I guess maybe they were working as a hive mind at that time, but
It might have
still,
been Backlash.
True. But for her to be able to handle that, I was just like, this is a well done scene. See, like this something about this that I like. I like the concepts that they bring in up in this. It just doesn't land for me. Like even the part where they're saying, where the witches are looking to Anastasia, basically saying, "Are you going to be our mother or our leader?"
No,
You
their
know what I
mother,
mean? Their
or
mother
our leader.
or our leader.
Yeah,
And she was like, I choose mother. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all, but so what about us? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't say I want order over you guys, but then say, well, I'm going to do my own thing. So, because if you're going to do your own thing and just be their mother, then we don't need to listen to you anymore, and we can do whatever we want.
or we can find another leader,
True. But
which
that,
would be, not quite Maul.
I did like that scene though. So there are things about this that I like. Even when Anastasia took over, or I guess didn't really take over the Padawan's mind, but kind of, I guess, looked into his thoughts or whatever. The way that scene was played out was cool, because now, since we've seen both versions of this conversation, she was just chilling while she was also invading this dude's mind and shutting him down. Like that, but once again, what Jay was saying, we don't know if these people are evil or not, because they were by themselves kicking it. They weren't attacking people. They were minding their own business out, in the countryside or something, just minding their business. And we didn't get a conversation of maybe 10 or so years ago, this group or a group like this did such and such, and there were 200 deaths or something like that. Nothing. So it seemed more of like, hey, look, we're minding our business. You came in our area. Like the mean mom said, you're trespassing, which they were. because now we know that you broke in, even though Saul, I guess, is just free climbing like Ethan Hunt out here. But like, the idea that they're evil doesn't really stick because, like Jay said, we don't know anything about them, and they haven't really been shown to do anything wrong. Like, I could see if they were maybe manipulating the Force in a way that was disturbing the balance, because of course Jedis want to maintain the balance, but they didn't seem like they were doing that either. They were kind of just kicking it. So I don't know. I'll throw it out here. I'll throw it to Jay. Jay, final thoughts, and where can they find you?
Yeah, final thoughts. So my final thought is this. I like what this show is trying to do, but I don't like how they're doing it. If I could just hit the reset button and be like, look, take all of these concepts and make this greenlight 3 seasons and take as much time as you need to get through all of this material, make as long of episodes as you need to make a good story, then I would be much more on board with what's going on. I really do. I'm one of those weirdos who does like the gray area of Star Wars. It hasn't worked as well in the films all the time, but like, I loved Andor, and Andor is all about like what is good and what is bad, and what are you willing to do and what should you not be willing to do, and Andor is like the perfect version of how to do that, and this is like a very odd, difficult to follow version of that. The other thing is, I would like to know more about all the lore that goes into this. I mean, this is the first show we've ever seen for someone like me who hasn't read the High Republic books. This is the first time we've ever seen the High Republic, and I feel like I don't know anything about the High Republic coming out of this. Mm-hmm. I know a few of the Jedi. I know kind of like that, some of that stuff, but even that like makes me just really confused. Like, there's times when I'm like, wait a minute, like Obi-Wan could feel Vader's presence, but like half the time these Jedi and these witches, there's one scene that made sense to me in regards to them feeling each other's presence, and that was when the lady with the spikes on her head could feel that she was being watched by Soul. Yeah. But the whole time the Jedi are on the planet, I'm like, you're not feeling the fact that there's like a giant Vergence, like it's a giant hole in the ground. Like, no one can sense that. Like, we're not like that. So now if you said to me, hey, in the High Republic, like they hadn't gained some of those skills yet, or that's something that the High Republic kind of just didn't figure out how to do until later. Okay, then that's cool. That builds the lore, and now I understand why that's happening or not happening. And I'm not even a big lore guy, but it is taking me out of it because I'm kind of like, wait a minute, why is that happening? I don't understand why this is happening. So for me, I feel like if you were to pitch this show to me, I'd be like, this show sounds legit and we should greenlight this show. I think after that, when it starts to come down to how much time do you have to film, how much time do you have per episode, how many episodes did we actually greenlight, I feel like this show got the raw end of the deal on that. Because if this is the way they pitched it and this is the way that they released it, then I would tell you this is not a very good show. But I feel like the bones of a good show are present. It's just that whatever we're getting in the end result is just very, very disappointing. And I know that like lots of people do like this show, and I'm not saying you shouldn't like it. I'm just saying for somebody like me, who's loved Andor, loved Rogue One, loved season 1 and 2 of Mandalorian, I think that this show is, for me, probably at this point below Book of Boba Fett, and that's not good for me. Yeah,
yeah, because we did not enjoy Book of Boba Fett that much.
Yeah, but with one caveat, I totally agree with both of you that the action sequences are legit, and that's how I knew that there were some people out there that were like just grifting off this show. Is that when they started saying like the sword fighting's not cool? I'm like, come on, dude. Like you've got to give that like like this short fighting is good. You're just looking for excuses to hate on this show, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't fall into that camp. I do think that there's some sequences that are really cool. I thought the effect that both Anastasia and the lady with the spikes on her head, the effect that they use when they're gonna like start using their dark side witch magic, where they kind of break up into smoke, I thought that was actually pretty dope. So, and I agree with you both that the sequence where Anastasia is messing with the Padawan, I think that actually worked pretty well too. Now, what she's tempting him on is a little bit awkward because again, it goes back to like he just doesn't want to be there. Like that's weird. But like if we knew like he had, if we knew he had an attachment on Coruscant, like we got two flashbacks of him with his girlfriend that he's been hiding, and he's worried that he's not going to make it back to her. And then maybe she's being like shipped, like maybe the Jedi are trying to like remove the two of them and keep them apart. Okay, now you've got something where I'm like, that's interesting, and then now I see why he wants to go back so bad and why he's worried about this. And then she could tempt him on that side of it. That makes more sense. But I do think that the creepiness of how that scene was handled was well done. So there's things that I like. I totally agree with you guys as well that anytime Carrie-Anne Moss is on screen, she's amazing. It's just that the bones are there. It's just that as they fleshed it out, it just doesn't work, unfortunately, for me.
All right, cool. So, guys, there it is. Go on, tell them where they can find you. I guess you know.
You can find me on YouTube, How Stories Work with Jay Sherer. You can always listen to NERDSoul because I'm on here whenever we're talking Star Wars. I usually make an appearance. I love talking Star Wars with Michael and Solar. And then you can also find me on Orange Grove 55, where we're usually talking about something under the Disney umbrella. We're not talking about Star Wars over there, ironically, but we are talking about Deadpool soon. So you can check us out on Orange Grove 55 or How Stories Work with Jay Sherer.
Cool. All right, Solar Grey, final thoughts. Where can they find you?
All right, this is a tough one. So, final thoughts. I already said how I think this episode should have flowed, which gives me how this episode should have ended. However, I'm going to say something a little controversial, but I'm going to tell you why. I like this show. I like it for what it is, but I see that it could be more. And with that being said, I think it should get a season 2 so that it can flush out a few things, such as the show is called The Acolyte, where it should be called The Failed Jedi, because we're not focusing on May.
Yeah, we're not following the Acolyte. We
That's a good point.
We haven't followed the Acolyte barely at all. We're really following Soul.
And truth be told, she has the potential to be a very interesting character, as does Osha.
Mm-hmm.
And a second season about the relationship between those sisters. Let's say it could be protagonist, antagonist, because they're already foils for each other. You know, we could have terrible force using Osha, or terrible force using yet high tech Osha, trying to clean up the messes that her sister causes. That would be a cool show. We could have, we haven't answered the question of who trained Manny. You know,
No.
like who was his master and did he kill his master, as Sith are wont to do? You know, opening up this show to 100-year prequel gives us so many story opportunities. And I don't want to throw that away on what seems to be an unfair try. An unfair try saying, well, you know, we tried the prequel, we tried it starring a non-traditional Star Wars character, and it didn't work out. So we're just going to go back to doing what we've always been doing. Jay nailed it. This has good bones. Okay, this show, it has it's got good nutrition, which is given it length of bone, and it just needs to, you know, hit the gym a little bit, get some vitamins, um, and get a few more passes on a few more scripts, because I said pick a story, and I wouldn't be saying that if it had one good story idea and 6 bad ones.
Yeah.
This looks like it's a prequel to 5 spin-off shows. This episode, my final thoughts on it was edited poorly in the sense where it should have been an expository flashback with voiceover, given what it was, whose perspective we were looking at everything from, and how the previous episode ended. There was not really much congruency from this episode, or from the last episode to this episode. You feel me?
At all.
And it was set up to. It was all set up. It was set up to have. It was right there. And then they said, just make it a flashback. And it was like, you set us up for a flashback. Just frame the flashback, please. Just frame it. Because you're releasing this week by week. Don't write it in such a way, or don't edit it in such a way where you only understand it if you're binging. And that's what I got from this, because seriously, the last line of last week's episode, I've thought about what I would say to you if I saw you again for 16 years, and now you're going to listen. So skip the previously on, skip the opening credits, and go directly into the flashback. Boom, you've got a perfect transition.
And then, of course, with his voiceover, and then it makes sense where we're like, okay, cool, we got it. But
yeah, we had to wait a week to get the next part, and it didn't have the same context. And there's probably a writer at Disney that will hear this and go, "See, I told you." But let's see what else. The thing is, I'm not disliking what I'm seeing, because I'm not tracking it as penultimate episode, or I'm not looking at the ticking clock of the season. I'm looking at this as a story that is happening, and looking at it through that lens with no expectations as a Star Wars fan. I can look at it more as a filmmaker and a writer. And as a filmmaker and a writer, Jay is hitting all of those points. But it is television. And television has the advantage that movies don't have, which is long form time. So this episode is kind of... God, what was it? I forgot what Sam Raimi's first movie with a budget was, but it feels like that. Like, it's got long form storytelling because it's TV. It just doesn't know what to do with it yet. If this show, this episode solidified for me that if this show finds its legs, it could be one of the better Star Wars shows. It could open up a whole different avenue of the franchise in the same way that the Clone Wars did and that Rebels did, if it took advantage of its long form storytelling and maybe had some people either in the writer's room or behind the camera who really understood that. Because what it's doing, and what I can see it's doing, is it's fighting really hard to make 8 films that link together. And I'm like, you guys are not the writers of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. You're not good enough at this. And don't cut your teeth with a franchise like Star Wars.
Yeah, because you got way too many people that are going to ask way too many questions.
Yeah. I'm like, cut your teeth on Booster Gold. Or,
oh, man.
Or, some B-tier story that has a small fan base, but the flexibility for interpretation, but not Star Wars, especially not Star Wars in the past 10 years. Because folks are looking at this stuff with a scrupulous eye, or a scrutinous eye, rather. And this episode, I'm not going to say they dropped the ball, but I am going to say if this was where they intended on releasing this episode, they dropped the ball. If they had a voiceover and cut it like Ridley Scott did with Blade Runner, they dropped the ball. If this was meant to be episode 5, it would have worked better. It should have been closer to the actual flashback.
Yeah, not when we think we're gonna get something completely different from the end of last episode. Oh boy.
So yeah, so all in all, if I were to give this a rating, it would be a pair. But we're just on the turn. You know? We're not actually no, we're at the flop. We're not at the river. You know. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch next week because who knows? Maybe next week everything will fall into place, like the ending of one of M. Night Shyamalan's first couple of movies.
Yeah, I hope so.
Or it could be Lady in the Water. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. And if you guys want to know more about how I view things and look at stuff and not get mad at so much media, come on down to my YouTube channel at Solar Grey, or check me out at twitch.tv/BID_P and hang out in real time and send me your questions. You know, I am happy to have conversations with just about anybody, although I don't really fight with anyone. So those people that want to come at me with bad faith arguments, I'm like, customer's always right in matters of taste. You don't like it, don't watch it. But I'll give stuff a chance because I don't have the budget or the clout to make the stuff that I want to see. So I'm trying to find ways to like the things that I can see. So yeah, that's where I sit with that.
All right. Well, final thoughts from me. I don't know how long this final episode is going to be, but I hope it's long enough.
Now 5 hours, directed by David Lynch.
Now that we've seen all these, something tells me that there's a better show that was written and plotted, but someone said it's got to be 8 episodes, and they were like, "Wait, you told us we could have 20," and they're like, "Yeah, it's 8 now." Like, I'm just hoping that there was more. I'm thinking that there was more, and it could have been fleshed out more, and we could have had a better turn for these characters, and maybe what we got was like, "Hey, look, you're only getting 8." And it's like, well, when we first started negotiating this, you said that we were going to get 16, or you said we were going to get 20 or something like that, and now we're going to have to try to shove this
us 10.
Oh man, so we'll see what happens next week. I'm not super jazzed, but we'll see. They've got a lot of wrapping up to do, but we'll see. If they were to do a season 2 of this, I don't know if I'd come back unless the first episode or 2 people were saying, "Hey, they brought it back around, they're killing it, they're doing their thing," then I might. But this one's been a rough one. This, especially when I was really expecting this episode to do something different. But of course, NERD, SOUL, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, podcast, all that jazz. And until the next time that you have to make a choice between twins on a bridge that is crumbling, this is from us to you saying peace.